Hey guys, Zangus, and today I'm going to be talking to you about 6 things that LG didn't actually mention about the G5 at their event in Barcelona. Coming at number 6 is actually to do with the camera, and I've got 2 different things that they didn't mention about the camera. Firstly, there is no megapixel increase, and to be honest, I'm actually kind of glad about this. If you know about photography, you know that increasing the megapixels won't always necessarily improve the better image quality. Megapixels is actually how many pixels are in a certain image, so just increasing it is not going to help, and I'm glad they've kept it. What they're trying to do is basically stick to what's important, but I'll actually get on to that later. So currently the specs for the G5 in terms of the camera is still 60 megapixels for the main camera, and then the front-facing camera is 8 megapixels. Coming at number 5, what they also didn't mention is that while there is a very big change to the battery, it's actually still removable, and actually it comes out the bottom rather than opening up the back and just moving it out. It actually has decreased in size. It went from 3000 milliamps to 2800, and I assume that they've tried to make the phone more efficient, and therefore this will hopefully increase battery life so they can reduce the size of the battery, therefore they can make it smaller. However, what they didn't mention is actually there's no wireless charging. To be honest, I'm not surprised about this. I mean, wireless charging has sort of been a feature that a lot of consumers want, but I don't think it's a feature that will change your decision between buying a phone that has wireless charging and a phone that doesn't have wireless charging. Hey, I think I would rather have a removable battery rather than wireless charging. However, I think a lot of people would rather have wireless charging compared to a removable battery. So it's just people's preferences, really. Coming up number 4 is actually there is no 4K display. Now, again, they didn't mention about this, but of course that's not really a problem because it's still stuck to an amazing display. It's Quad HD, and the resolution is 2560 by 1440. So that still gives it a PPI of 554, which is still really high and completely floors smartphones like the iPhone, and it's still one of the best screens out there. However, what they also didn't mention is that they've decreased the size of the screen. The LG G4 is actually 5.5 inches, where the LG G5 is actually 5.3 inches. So they've actually decreased the size of the screen. I think this is actually quite a big thing because a lot of smartphones, when they release a new smartphone, they actually increase the size, but they've actually decreased it, and that probably is to actually mean that they can get more processing power in the phone and just get more components in. However, it's still an IPS LCD display, and it still means that we're going to get incredible colors, great saturation, and just great clarity overall. However, yeah, no 4K display. I don't think it's too much of a bummer. I personally think having a 4K display in a smartphone is just stupid. The Z5 Premium, the Sony Z5 Premium has actually done it, and I just don't really see the point in it. Our eyes just aren't able to pick up that detail. On TVs, I can definitely understand it, or on tablets, maybe, laptops, stuff like that. I can kind of see it on monitors, I can definitely see it as well, but on smartphones, it's just stupid because when you do compare it, say a 4K smartphone to a 1080p smartphone, there just really isn't much of a difference. However, I don't think this will be too much of a bummer for most people, but again, there's no 4K display. Coming at number 3, they didn't really talk about the specs. Of course, they said, here, look, here's the specs, but we don't care about that, we're just going to put it on our website, let's actually get to the important stuff, and I can kind of understand that. It's got 4 gigabytes of RAM straight away. That is a lot of RAM in a phone. One of the reasons the iPhone didn't actually want to have much RAM, and the reason they stuck to 2 gigabytes is because it uses more battery life. However, this will mean that we'll be able to do probably a lot of heavy multitasking on the LG G5, and I think that will be a good thing, but let's actually hope it doesn't affect the battery life. Also, it has 32 gigabytes of course standard storage, and it has a Snapdragon 820 processor, so that's still going to give us incredible power, but again, they didn't really talk much about that. They did talk about the actual Snapdragon 820 processor, but not really much about the specs, and I think that's a good idea because they actually kept it really short. The event was probably around 40 to 45 minutes. I watched the whole thing, thing, and I thought they kept it really short and simple, and they kept it nice as well, and that was actually including talking about all the other products that were released as well. Coming at number 2 is a surprise. I don't really know why they didn't really talk about this, and it's actually the fact that the LG G5 has 2 cameras, not 1 but 2. Now, we have seen this in different smartphones. HTC have done it, but they failed because it didn't really work. But they're using 2 cameras, and the way they're using that is, so instead of getting a 75-degree shot, we actually get a 135-degree shot. So that's going to give us really, really fantastic angles, and I'm really pleased about that because it also means that we're going to get better depth of field, and possibly, maybe in certain software updates, we're actually going to get 3D capabilities. So I look forward to that. However, I don't know actually in terms of the megapixels for both cameras. What I do know is just the main camera is 16 megapixels. However, I don't know if the other one is 16 megapixels. They didn't really talk about that, and I don't know why. I guess they just wanted to keep it short and just get the phone out and just release it. But yeah, that's their decision. Number 1 feature, I'm really surprised they didn't talk about, because when Apple sort of came out with it, it was a massive, massive feature. However, now it's sort of just a standard thing, and in fact, LG didn't talk about this at all, and it's surprising. And it's actually that the LG G5 has a fingerprint sensor. Why they didn't talk about this, I don't know. I guess it's just sort of a feature people, of course, figure out, and a lot of people will already blog about it. Huge new feature, and I think a fingerprint sensor can be a feature that will help you decide whether you want one or not, because there are a lot of smartphones that don't have a fingerprint sensor, and now this one does. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't talk about it, but hey, I guess it's in the phone, and I'm really glad about it. So anyway, those were 6 things that LG didn't actually mention at the LG G5 event. Why they didn't talk about it, I don't know. They were really decent features, especially the 2 cameras. That's sort of something quite surprising actually, considering the LG G5 and the LG G4 has always sort of been a smartphone recognized for excellent photography capabilities. Why they also didn't talk about the display, wireless charging, and also just things like the camera and the fingerprint sensor, I don't know. But hey, those were just 6 things they didn't talk about. Of course, if you did find this video helpful, then definitely be sure to give this video a thumbs up. But apart from that, thanks for watching. It actually has increased. Right, no, that didn't make sense. And just great. Oh my god.